My fellow Amazonians, good day to everyone. This is Dr. Ayaba. I want to salute your bravery and thank you for your service to our country. I really want to congratulate our people for their patience. And I sent my condolences to our forces in Mezam. We lost two brave fighters in Mezam. And special honor to two very brave soldiers whom I'll be recommending for a Medal of Honor. When one of our fighters was shot, and that particular fighter who died will also be honoring him for his bravery. He was wounded. He moved to a secure place where he put his rifle on the ground and laid on the rifle, and he died on his rifle. We sent in a rescue mission after we were informed where the fighter was lying. We sent in a rescue mission. Our forces break through the enemy force and were able to reach at the soldier, but when they realized he was dead, they secured his rifle and his phone, and they were able to extract themselves out of that zone. It was a very difficult moment because we were up, I think from 4 o'clock, monitoring the fight. And we are aware, as you are aware for those who are in Bamenda, what is going on in Mulang area and Ngomram, the extortion. They've been locking up stores, but we have been fighting them on a daily basis. And we will keep fighting them on a daily basis and let La Republique know wherever they take refuge, wherever they set up a roadblock, we will attack them. And I ask our people to bear with us in the Mulang and Ngomram area. They've been extorting monies from our people, locking up stores and giving the keys back in exchange for payment of money. They've been molesting our young girls, raping the wives of men as a mark of humiliation. So rape is now being used as a weapon of war. But this is war for our freedom, and we will continue with the best of our abilities to make sure that we can fight La Republique du Cameroon wherever they rear their ugly head. And I really want to congratulate our people for their resilience and patience within these very difficult moments. I thank our forces for the bravery too. I congratulate our forces for coming together. We've been working extremely very hard, especially within Momo, within Mezam, within Bui, to bring our forces together. And the result has been extremely very positive. And we will continue to work hard in the background to make sure that we can bridge the gap between these forces and we can make them to understand that working together is going to be beneficial. And we've been dealing with a lot of attempts by manufacturers of chaos to infiltrate, to create chaos. And I congratulate our forces in Mezam, who yesterday resisted this attempt. And I've spoken to them this morning to reject any attempt by anyone to sow seed of discord between them. Anyone out here, any person who calls himself or herself a leader should encourage our forces to work together. That is the least you can do. And any attempt to incite our forces against each other is not for the benefit of Ambazonia. The second issue I want to address is the attempt by the various leaders at the political level to work together. It has not been easy, but we have been making baby steps to make sure that the All Amazonian Conference in 2023 holds in grand style with the participation of everyone, every interest groups, whether it's refugees, IDPs, and all the groups that are existing, to make sure that we can find some common grounds as we continue in our struggle to make sure that we can bring ourselves together to reduce the sufferings of our people. Tomorrow there is a leaders meeting in Toronto to speak to our people and have a conversation on what has been going on, the efforts in the background to make sure that we can reduce the tension between the groups. The third issue I want to address is the issue within Momo. Our forces have imposed taxes within the communities, and there has been a lot of uproar and agitations out here in the diaspora. I'm grateful that yesterday the president of the consortium, Mr. John Bakoro, reached out to me, and the vice president of the IG, Mr. Yerima, also reached out to me on this issue. This is what I want to say, and with all objectivity. There are two levels of operation within the Amazonian Governing Council. There's the leadership level, where policies are discussed, they are formulated and brought to the attention of the public for discussions and input before they are turned into policy. There is also the level of the forces. They have the powers to develop ideas and implement them, and they discuss that with leadership so that the implementation is not viewed from a negative perspective. At one stage in our struggle, we realized that the funding for our struggle was mainly coming in from our citizens in exile. And this has become a problem because it has been weaponized. Funding has been weaponized. I don't want to get into that a lot. And it has had a negative effect on our struggle. The weaponization of funding, where groups start fighting each other. I remember the principal attack on the Amazonian Governing Council was to make sure that we do not secure the funds that are necessary for the prosecution of the war. Because many other groups thought with the funding, then the ADF will definitely prevail against the enemy for the interest of every Amazonian. But for others, they saw it as some political victory for AGOVC and Ayaba rather than a victory for Amazonia. This narrowscopic view of things sometimes has become the source of all the agitations that you find out there. And we also came to the conclusion that our forces have dynamic control on the ground. And it was important that businesses, rather than paying taxes to La Republique to fuel its genocide, they should pay taxes to our forces, the defenders of the land, those who were bleeding. It was not simply a matter of money, as I explained, it was a matter of political projection. He who controls the land only has the right to impose the taxes. And that's about taking ownership. And so we instituted the liberation tax, which some others attacked. But don't forget, the forces have been collecting taxes in some form on the ground. The way society functions is, and the way societies are constructed is in a way that activities are regulated by law. So sometimes governments in certain countries, they see certain activities going on. Take for the United States, the issue of cannabis, where people were selling cannabis, people were doing stuff. And the government realized that you can't really stop this thing. Researchers entered into it and examined the medicinal value of cannabis and realized it had medicinal value. And so the government took ownership, imposed taxes as to regulate consumption for public safety purposes. And that's the way you reduce certain levels of criminality within society. So we realize that either way, our forces have been setting up roadblocks. They've been collecting some form of taxes from our population. How do you regulate this for purposes of accountability, elimination of duplicity, and to factor it within the political projection of Amazonia as having control of its own destiny? And we also thought, if we do not regulate these activities, it would increase the kidnapping for ransom, it would increase illegal activities by rogue soldiers. And our forces are not paid. And 6 years into this war, we should be paying our forces. It costs nothing to pay these forces, even 25,000 amber a month, for their own humanity, for their dignity. And that's how we impose the liberation tax, targeting companies that operate within Amazonia. For them to understand you operate within a zone that is at war, and there are defenders of that zone. And he was still attacked. People came out and said he was a cover for kidnapping for ransom. Not because they hated it, but for two reasons. Anything that comes from the Age of Sea should be attacked, and then you can go behind and copy it. Self-defense, when we talked about it, they attacked it. When they entered it, they wanted to own it. So we are used to these things. So we imposed the liberation tax, and it has been effective. It has been effective. 60 to 70% of the funding of this struggle now comes from ground zero, not exilees. It comes from ground zero. Forces are doing the things that all forces in war have done. We are not manufacturing something new. We have been having meetings with other rebel groups. This is what they do. Communities are asked to pay something so that the forces can be armed, so that community activities can be carried out. So at the leadership level, we imposed the liberation tax, and it was not for ADF. We encourage all forces to do the same. In the Atlantic, even before we imposed the taxes, forces operating within areas where there is cocoa have imposed taxes on cocoa farmers. It's not new. So when we try to regulate these things, you get these negative individuals out here trying to instrumentalize communities, and it's unacceptable. I think it's a lost strategy. It has not worked before, and it's not going to work today. It will not work in the next 100 years. But with respect to the second level of activities, forces operate within certain areas. They understand what is going on in those areas. For example, forces operating in Meme or in Kope, especially Meme, they know that you have massive production of cocoa. And most of these people sometimes are foreigners, and they impose some level of taxation. That's the reality of those areas. In other areas, whether it's Manu, people producing massive amount of arrow, they impose some level of taxation on those people. Otherwise, how do you think we fund the war? We don't have a government that is supporting us like you had, the ANC had, or you had the Kagames that were supported by Uganda, or the Eritreans that were supported by others. Even the Eritreans imposed taxes on all Eritreans living abroad. I will come to that. So these forces do these things. In other places, they collect some taxes from the market, which is what La Republique has been doing. In areas under La Republique's control, they send council people to the markets to collect some level of taxes, where these mayors steal the money and invest it someplace else. These are normal things. The role of leadership is to regulate these things so that it doesn't invariably affect our population. So the Supreme General of the ADF had brought this issue of imposing a tax within the communities, and first we rejected it. The defense chair and myself had a conversation. We said, no, it's not the time, delay it, and we don't think you should focus on the liberation tax. And it was delayed. And at one time, they brought it up again that they think the population is for it because we had set up the Amazonian Transitional Liberation Authority. And what was the essence of this? Forces cannot run a war alone. They must work with the community. And not every community member can become part of the force. So what is the mediating institution? We need to create mediating institution that bring together the community and the forces so they can work together, not only on the defense of the land, but on issues of sanitation, on issues of community education, on issues of health, on issues of security and policing. That is how we set up the ADLA. ADLA has been doing great jobs in the state of Bui. We've been digging roads. We have been paving roads alongside with the community. The way you get the community to invest in their own future is to be part of it. Otherwise, soldiers carrying guns will just be going around and imposing things on the population. So let's find a mediating institution 6 years into this war that can bring together communities with our forces to work on common ideas. That is a sense of ownership. And we had told the Supreme General this thing can only work under ATLA. It cannot work under ADF. ADF is within the areas they control, the overarching authority. But there must be a mediating authority between the ADF and the population that brings the forces together and the population to work on common ideas. And I have addressed communities in Momo. I've addressed communities in Mezam. Our forces are doing a lot. They provide support for different projects. We have been part of these things. In one other community, our forces provided 20 bags of cement for the construction of certain stuff. Let me not go into it detail. In another place, we are working now on roofing schools that have been brought down by wind. So the only way governments raise money is through taxation. No other way. Somalia cannot say, oh yeah, Somalians are poor, so we will not institute taxes. It's not going to work. Governments will collapse. In times of war, movements generate resources through forms of taxation. So the ADF has imposed these taxes in communities, in discussions with the communities under ADLA. All quarter heads are involved. Teachers are exempt from these taxes. Teachers, because they provide services to communities. Families that have forces fighting are also exempt from these taxes. The handicapped, the sick, those who are assessed as not having money, you exempt them from these forms of taxes. You know, so we have put in place a humane system, a system that helps to generate resources so we can manage the community schools that we have, so we can look after roads, we can pave roads, dig some, provide services. You know, fighting for freedom costs a lot of money. Out here, on a monthly basis, members of the AGOFC, on a monthly basis, we pay in. I spend at least 100. I think that is minimum 100,000 every month as my own contribution. So for a year, if you pay 15,000, I pay 1.2 million. There are people within AGOFC that pay at least 4 million a year for the liberation. Last year, the treasurer of the AGOFC paid in 1.25 million just for buying an AK for a soldier. She picked up another job and came to me and said, hey, Mr. President, God blessed me with another job. I am adding another 1.2 million. And that was 2.4 million, including her monthly contribution of 60,000 or 65 or close to 70,000. So we want to make sure that we work together to speed up the day we have our freedom. Amazonians contribute everywhere. Those who are members of the SDF, I was there. You contribute, you make a minimum contribution. You go to church, you give tithes. Inside your Njangi houses, you make contributions. Somebody dies, you people contribute. And why is it asking people to give 15,000 for a year such a wahala? It is not that those making noise, they love Ground Zero. And what has been imposed there in Momo is lower than what the ADF has put in Lebialem. Is higher in Lebialem than in Momo. But sometimes you have these elites from Momo who want to always bring chaos. I call on the people of Momo to reject these people. They've made Momo such a notorious place for manufacturing of chaos and falsehood. From the beginning of the struggle, Momo has been an asset turned into a liability by people seeking power and think that they can create confusion. That time is over. You have lost. Ground Zero has vomited you out. We have tried that we can work together to make things acceptable across the board. You don't want it. You think your medium of exchange is to go on social media on a daily basis, Ayaba, 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 Ayaba. In my scope of thinking, you don't exist. Those who think chaos is their prime contribution to our struggle, most of you have access to me. When this issue of Momo came up, I went to the president of the consortium who comes from Mogamo. I said, my brother, come and that's your place. What do you think? And we called the Supreme General, the two of us, and I allowed them to speak. They are people from that place. They spoke. Supreme explained to him, and he himself said, this thing sounds reasonable. And I said to him, let's find a way to see how we can work together, since it's your place, for us to agree on an acceptable scheme that works for these communities. And I think they've made a local initiative become very popular, that we think we will be discussing this at the political level to see that we institute some form of taxation on Amazonians, those who can, so that we can facilitate the ending of this war. We are working on a project for about 2.5 million US dollars to be able to end La Republic's reign in Amazonia. And we will mobilize that money. We have already developed fully how we are going to do that. And we know that that will be the end of the enemy. We are working on a daily basis. Sometimes we hear on a daily basis. I cannot. Just a few weeks ago, we were trying to mobilize resources for Bui to buy weapons. We needed to buy, I think, 10 rifles. A member of the US mission bought 3 alone. That was 3.6 million. Fellow Amazonians, especially our people on Ground Zero, I know you people go through a lot. This is what we've gone through since we were born, since the enemy entered our land. And I know that during war, the risk on our population, the suffering increases. It is not because we are fighting. It is simply because the enemy has acted this way since it entered our land. We had not just resisted back. You may give 15,000. There is a family that has given their son. It's a family that has given their daughter. In the last 2 weeks alone, We lost 3 soldiers, 1 in Sabga, 2 in Bamenda. Those are children of families. And please, reject these blackmailers. For you people who are Christians, you know how Jesus was crucified through blackmail, sabotage, lies telling. Those who believe in Amazonia have private discussions. All those from the past 5 years who thought they could gain prominence and popularity through blackmail, where are they? They've abandoned you. They've abandoned you. They've gained that popularity at the expense of the stability of our struggle. Every day, new ones coming. No, you are going nowhere. We are determined. La Republic has not been able to blackmail us. Not some individual hiding in their small cubicles and manufacturing hate and slander through WhatsApp. We are determined to end La Republic's reign in Amazonia, and it should be a collective effort. We will be providing a number, and the Capo Daniel will be providing that. Comrade Asu Lucas will be doing that. If our forces impose any levy or taxes on you, and you think you are in a financial situation that you cannot pay, let them know. And if they continue, call that number. We will make sure that it doesn't happen. For all those chaos manufacturer, you can simply pay for a village. You're hiding in your house in safety out here, and you could mobilize enough money for the forces. They don't contribute to arm our people. They want to exploit forces that have worked so hard to generate resources. They want to attack the integrity of these forces. They call them all sorts of names. But when you have thugs and murderers standing on the lifeless bodies of our students, you don't hear them screaming for the world to indict these murderers of our people. Every endeavor we engage in, if you are in Mekuda, you contribute for development. And you don't contribute 15,000 a year. And then consider freedom. How much can you really pay for freedom? Jesus paid with his life for salvation. Mandela paid with his liberty. Amazonians are in jail more than 3,000. Every time families are paying. We have prisoners being sick. We have to pay. When a soldier is wounded, you don't take them for treatment for free. Sometimes we pay bills close to 2 million. Accumulated bills after these children have been wounded. Some are handicapped. You have so many handicapped Amazonian fighters. The physical impairment that you see, and then the psychological. How do you think these children feed? How do you think these children are able to go through pain? Soldiers who die have wives, they have children. We look after them. We leave no one behind. And those who are out here have spent their entire time creating chaos so that they can reduce our effectiveness. We have to look for a way to be effective. And it may have to be simply imposing a small cost. They can shout from morning to evening, from Monday to Sunday. It will not change. They can increase 10 from microphone to megaphone. We will be unyielding to these blackmailers, and we will retire them the way we've retired those who came before them. It is not they who scream on a daily basis, who call my name, that will inherit my Father's kingdom. But there are those who walk in the footsteps of my Son. It is not they who shout Ayaba, Ayaba, Ayaba every day who believe in the freedom of Amazonia. It is those who from the beginning knew we needed an army. Knew that if you ban schools, you cannot just go and fold your arms and think that our children will not go to school. And they created community schools. It is those who are building those schools. It is those who are thinking about people on a daily basis, defending them, putting their lives on the line for our country. It is those who care for you, Amazonians. We are humans, we make mistakes. And sometimes when they are brought to our attention, we look at those mistakes and correct them. But you cannot fight a war when others think that they can use social media. They have access to our members. They could have conversation. They are afraid. They think that Ayaba is going to take power. There is no power to be taken. There is freedom to be taken by every Amazonian. That's the real power. The era of people looking at politicians and looking at positions in government as being important is gone. The richest people in the world are businessmen, the Warren Buffett, the Bill Gates. Those who have created WhatsApp, those who have created Facebook are more valuable than all of these tyrants, these people who call themselves politicians. Who will you want to be? Who will you want to be? Do you want to be Paul Biya? Or you want to be Mark Zuckerberg? How do you want to be remembered? Support your children. That's what they are asking. And we have told them, don't put roadblocks and be collecting money from our people. Don't. That's what we are fighting against. Work with the people to institute systems that work for you and the people. Acceptable. So you meet with the community and say, oh, how much can every person give for 1 year? And people give their ideas, and they came with the idea of 10,000 for women, I think 15 for men, and I think 5,000 for the young. Support your children, Amazonians. They are the ones fighting and dying. You are the ones burying them. You are the ones who see them on a daily basis. They fight. They get wounded. And they are treated with money. There are widows. There are orphans that they leave. You have to care for those children. If you are a father at home, and the Bible asks, who will give his child a serpent if they ask for bread? These kids are asking for bread. The serpent providers are on social media shouting so that you should rise up and attack your own children, fighting to defend you. So you return to a state of hopelessness, a life of uncertainty. You live your entire life in pain, in suffering, in struggling to buy salt. I better go to jail for 10 years and come out and be a free person than to live out running every day. Your children that you give birth to, they grow up in the same circle of poverty. There are those who have drowned in the sea, struggling to live. This container called hell must come to an end. And I ask you to do your best. Give your widow's mite. If you don't have, let our forces know. And if they insist, call the telephone number that we will provide. If we do this, in less than 1 year, La Republique is gone. And it will be the beginning of the ending of the pain under this occupation. God bless you all.